Thank you for watching us on YouTube. But did you know that if you're on the go, you can get the full show as a podcast now? You can get our morning breakdown of the most important topics facing our country, news not being covered by the mainstream media, interviews with change-making progressives, and info on what you can actually do about all this. Search for The Damage Report on your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you know when new episodes are ready to go. We are now in the thick of hurricane season, and so I'm very pleased to invite to the show Eitan Edwards, is the executive director of the International Preparedness Network, going to help us break down how we can be prepared for things like hurricanes. Eitan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
I'm glad to have you here. So Hurricane Florence, we're still in the aftermath of that, and it was a bad storm. It was a deadly storm. With things like that in the news, what do you recommend for people who are in areas that might be affected by things like hurricanes? What should they be thinking about long in advance of the disaster in terms of what they can do?
I think that one of the most important things in terms of dealing with the hurricanes is preparing for them, obviously, before they happen. Also having an exit plan pre-prepared, as opposed to kind of like making it up as you go along. I think that the American people are going to have to recognize to a large degree that because of the global warming, the situation, as Trump calls it, the Chinese hoax, it's real. And we're going to have these superstorms that are going to increase in their frequency and magnitude over the next several decades, if not indefinitely. And we're going to have to take the measures for ourselves and do the things that we are going to have to do. We're going to have to make sure that we have emergency food. We're going to have to make sure we have emergency water. We're going to have to make sure we have exit plans. The people speak about the go bags, those pre-packed bags that you use that can allow for you to survive outside of your home for extended periods, usually about a week. And all of this has to be incorporated into our daily routine. We're going to have to learn that it's going to make it a lifestyle as opposed to something that we just do because this is going to increase. This is not going to go away. I think that in a lot of cases, people are trying to, it's going to get better in time. No, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse, especially people who live in the low-lying areas, in the coastal areas. I've heard over the past summer that there are areas in the country that are actually flooding and there's no rainstorms. So we've got to recognize this truth. This is a reality in our existence today, and we got to plan for it.
So you talked there about how the disasters are actually getting worse. I'm interested in the time that you've been, doing talks about this, writing books and all of that. How has the idea or the popular perception of preparedness changed over time? Are people taking it more seriously?
Well, they're taking it more seriously, John. But the thing is that that to a large degree, that prepping became popular. The term prepping, as it kind of phased over from, let's say, survivalism to prepping. And but in the process of it being, I suppose, popularized and integrating itself into the culture, that in a lot of cases it got a little warped, and some people were not attracted to it anymore because they see it as kind of like people who are preppers are somewhat fanatical and a little bit too extreme. But in reality, there's more people that embrace it now than they did, like, let's say, 10, 20 years ago. But one of the things that I've been working on over the years is to try to get this into the mainstream culture. And that is for everyone to consider prepping to be something that's a part of their life, a part of their lifestyle. Everybody that you've got car insurance, you've got insurance for your home, you go out in the rain, you need a raincoat. And prepping is that kind of a countermeasure to the things that we know are going to occur. So yes, people are responding to it more. As in terms of better, I think that a lot of people are not attracted to the so-called prepping aspect of it because they think that there's something connected to it that's a little bit extreme, but that's not the truth. The reality is we've got to do it. It's something that we have to do.
What can I ask? What have you? I'm totally curious. Since what have you done to prepare?
Well, I've done everything that in terms of, I've got the emergency food, emergency water, emergency escape plan, the materials and equipment that I need to mitigate it, respond to, and recover from a wide variety of disasters. And it's something that you do in periods of time. You take your time. You don't do it all at once. It can be a little expensive in that way. But what I've done is I've designed a program that is kind of a fast response to, let's say, the most frequent disasters that I encounter in my area. Like I'm in New York, and so I've got a kit and I've got plans that I've conformed and designed to respond to the kind of disasters that we have here in New York. And that would include the nor'easters, the snowstorms, occasional hurricanes, and unfortunately, even a terroristic incident like we saw in 9/11 back in 2001. And a few things that are going to occur in the future. I think things that I'm most worried and most concerned about the American population, and that is a pandemic. And I've also taken measures to prepare for that as well. So I think that this is one of the most important things, and I wanted to speaking to you guys about this and getting to your viewers, that we've got to start to prepare for these larger scale emergencies that the government is not going to be able to help us, as we saw in Puerto Rico, as we still see in Puerto Rico.
And is there? Let me just interrupt. Is there an affordable way to do this for folks?
I say again?
Is there an affordable way to do this for people?
Of course. It's all about, I always say that if you've got a will, that there's a way. There are ways to do this where if you can't afford to buy like some of the equipment that can be expensive, a lot of it can be even improvised. I teach classes on how people can make things from scratch, finding stuff in the trash that you can convert into drip water filters and gas masks and all sorts of things that they can do to kind of, let's say, offset the costs. It's just about whether you have the will to learn how to do it. But if you do, there's always a way to get it done. And that's what I want people to understand. But also to understand that this is something that's imperative, especially relative to things like hurricanes and also, again, not to belabor the point, but the pandemics, because we're due for one. They come every 100 years or so. And there was something up at Johns Hopkins University in May. It was a CLADEX exercise where they had a number of professionals that came together to coordinate a drill, a simulated drill of what the governmental response would be for a large-scale pandemic. And I can tell you straight out that, generally speaking, we're not prepared as a nation to deal with these kinds of catastrophes. Again, as we saw in Puerto Rico, we weren't prepared. And then we don't have the leadership to kind of direct us in the ways that we need to when these things strike. So it's up to the American people to do the things that are necessary to protect themselves and to not look for the government to come and swoop down and fly in and make everything great, because they're not going to be able to do it. The responders are great, but the first responders need the American people to take responsibility for themselves and their own lives so that their jobs aren't going to be made more complicated when these disasters strike. And believe me, they are going to come.
Eitan Edwards, Executive Director of the International Preparedness Network, obviously timely advice, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.